Let's address a common problem: freezing in a match when faced with different placements, spins, and heights. You become unsure whether you should attack, push, or loop the ball. First, let's define the ball types. A long ball is a ball whose first bounce lands near the opponent's end line. A long ball is defined by its first bounce, not by where the second bounce would land or where you contact it. A ball that would bounce 2 or more times on the table is a short ball. If the first bounce is at this position and it barely clears the table, it's called a half-long ball. Only a ball with its first bounce near the end line is a true long ball. Let's start with short balls. After you serve, if your opponent returns with a short push, and the ball's trajectory is low, their push will have backspin. For a stable, high-percentage return, use a short push or a long push. If you want to be aggressive, you can use a push flick. This is because an amateur's short push usually isn't extremely spinny. Notice a critical detail: whether I'm executing a long push or a flick, the timing must be at the peak of the bounce. If your timing is late and you contact the ball in its falling phase, trying to flick will lead to errors. In this situation, the safest shot is a side spin push. At a low contact point, never try to chop or flick aggressively. It's a recipe for an unforced error. Amateur players frequently struggle with this due to improper footwork or body positioning. Even when you're in a disadvantageous position, it's vital to know how to return the ball to neutralize your opponent's powerful loop. If you can read the ball early, you have the option to either push it long and fast or flick it aggressively. Next scenario: your opponent pops the ball up, for example, after you serve a half-long, semi-spinny ball. Let's analyze this seemingly easy high ball, as it's often a trap. How many of you frequently make mistakes on this type of shot? I classify these high balls into 2 types: in-the-table high balls and half-long high balls. For a high ball that's still over the table, you must use a standard flick to be effective. Some might suggest a quick counterdrive over the table, but that's a very awkward and low-percentage shot. A ball that would bounce twice is considered in the table, so you must use an in-the-table technique, which is primarily the flick. At this point, a simple push flick is not enough, as it lacks power and quality. So, how do you generate quality on your flick? By actively using your wrist. When powering through a flick, remember this: the force is not generated by pulling your arm back. The power comes from a snappy forward motion of the wrist at the moment of contact. The direction is forward, not backward or upward. It is a forward propelling motion. As you can see, there's minimal forearm follow-through and no large backswing. Taking a big backswing on this shot is a common mistake among amateur players. Although you need to be close to the ball, just before contact, your wrist must be flexible and snap forward like a fishtail to generate spin and pace. This fishtail flick technique is only for high balls. Do not attempt this on a low ball. Because the ball is high, the incoming spin will be weaker. This power generation is a quick, forward wrist snap. It's not a wild swing, but a compact 1-2 motion. You might ask, can't I just smash it? You can, but the risk of error is high. The distance over the table is short. If you use too much forearm, the trajectory will be too high, and the ball will fly off the table. This is why I advocate for the wrist-driven flick. It creates a flatter trajectory, allowing you to apply more power while keeping the ball on the table. The second scenario involves a soft return from the opponent. If the incoming ball has some sidespin topspin, it might pop up even higher. This type of ball is what we defined earlier as a half-long ball. This often happens when your opponent passively blocks, softly touches, or absorbs the pace of your serve. My first recommendation: if your serve was very spinny and you're not confident in your attack on the soft return, just push it back. Your return must pressure their backhand corner, because even if they can attack from there, the quality of their shot will be lower. So, if you can't execute a strong attack, push the ball deep to their backhand and prepare to loop the next ball. When the spin is more predictable, then you can loop it. If you're in trouble, just use your forearm to push it deep to the opponent's baseline. A deep ball to the backhand corner is difficult to attack forcefully, even for professional players. So, this return doesn't need to be spinny, it just needs to be long. However, if you push a spinny ball short, I can loop it, because I have the space and time to engage my body and generate power. But if the ball is long and deep, my ability to loop with full power is severely limited. I'll likely hit it into the net because I'm jammed. Second point, if you serve with heavy spin and your opponent uses your pace to push it back, the return will be very low and soft, with the first bounce close to the net. You have two options here: step in and loop at the peak of the bounce, or wait for the ball to drop and execute a heavy spin loop. Never try to power loop the ball after it has dropped. Many players make the mistake of trying to smash the ball from a low point, which is the primary reason for unforced errors. You are trying to generate power from a position where it's impossible to do so. So for this ball, there are only two correct approaches. Option 1, after serving, if the return is half long and you want to attack, step forward with your right foot and extend your arm over the table to brush the ball forward. Option 2, I don't step in with my right foot, but hold my standard position for a long ball, since a half-long ball will come off the table. I contact the ball later and lower, focusing on generating heavy topspin, a slow, spinny loop. This high spin loop is very difficult for the opponent to block. Our mistake is that we don't step in, yet we still try to hit with full power from an off-balance position. You feel like you have time to generate power because the ball is slow. But in reality, you've fallen into a positioning trap where you can't properly use your body's force. Alternatively, you can push deep to their backhand and prepare to attack the next ball. This is often easier because your footwork is already set. To summarize, either step into loop at the peak of the bounce, or stay back and loop with heavy spin in the falling phase. The falling phase loop requires more spin, while the peak of the bounce loop requires you to hit through the ball. Many players want to attack but fail to properly engage the ball. Their contact is weak and they pull back on impact. The correct feeling is that upon contact, your force should continue forward into the table, towards your opponent. You must drive through the ball. You cannot be timid at contact and stop your arm's motion. You must commit and accelerate through the ball. That covers half-long backspin balls. Next, let's discuss half-long high balls. This is actually the most common situation, because many amateur serves don't have pure, clean spin. In amateur matches, I often see players slice or chop this kind of return, causing the ball to decelerate. More advanced players will use a sharp, compact chop push to keep the ball low and spinny, which is a very tricky shot to handle. This short, sharp chopping motion makes the ball die, so you must carefully observe your opponent's stroke. If their soft return is a simple touch or block, you should use a more open racket angle and hit forward and down. If their return has that sharp, downward, chopping motion, you must hit forward and upward to lift the backspin. If you hit downward on a chopped ball, you'll make the common amateur mistake of hitting it straight into the net. We've established that for a half-long ball, you can choose to step in or not. But for a high ball, should you step in? Yes, you must, because a high ball is typically shorter. Therefore, after every serve, you must recover to a neutral ready position prepared for a long ball, not stand too close to the table. When you see a short ball, your first move is to rotate your body, then step in. Some may ask, shouldn't I step with my right foot? Stepping with the right foot can get you jammed, so we often recommend stepping with the left foot. If the ball is very short, stepping with the right foot is fine. The danger is when the opponent's push has a hidden, forward momentum. It might look like a soft touch, but there's a quick jab that makes the ball longer and faster than you expect. By rotating my body first, I'm actually sighting the ball and judging its depth. Then, I can lunge in with my left foot to attack. If the ball is confirmed to be very short, you can then step in with your right foot. However, if you commit with your right foot and the ball comes half long, you will overcommit, resulting in too much collision with the ball and causing it to go out of bounds. If I move with my left foot, my rotation opens up my body, allowing me to adjust and still strike the ball with power. I can adjust to a longer ball, a shorter ball, or a very short ball by varying the size of my step. But if I lead with my right foot, I lose that adjustability. If the ball is even slightly long, I'll be completely jammed. So, for short balls, I can step in to push or flick aggressively. For half-long backspin balls, because they are slower, I can step in to adjust. For high balls, you must rotate first, then step in. This ensures you can meet the ball in front and use your body weight. This allows you to finish the point with one shot. If you have exceptionally good judgment, stepping with the right foot can work, but never let your contact point be beside or behind your body. A late contact point from this position will result in a very high error rate. This is a common issue. For instance, a player might serve with a hook serve, and when the opponent pushes, they step in too far, leaving their arm behind. This is why their forehand attack after serve is often inconsistent. If that player could learn to serve, rotate, and then step in, they would create the perfect amount of space for their shot. I advise you not to lunge forward with your body first. When you see a high ball, your first instinct must be to rotate, then move in. This will synchronize your power. Now, let's move on to long balls. There are a few main types of long returns. The first is a heavy, long push or chop. The second is a simple push with no spin or light backspin. The third, common from penhold players, is a fast, long jab push. It's not a normal block. They use a push racket angle and quickly jab the ball forward. This is a very awkward ball. If you treat it like heavy backspin and loop up, it goes long. If you treat it like no spin and drive, it goes in the net. I've found that this kind of in-between or neutral spin is the most difficult to handle. So how do we solve this? First, against a very heavy backspin ball, you must use more friction. Use a compact motion and brush and lift the ball. When your opponent chops your serve long, you must meet the ball early with a compact, brushing loop. Match their pace, complete your brushing motion, and the ball will go over. The heavier they chop, the more compact your stroke should be. Just focus on brushing the ball forward. Forget about a big wind-up, body rotation, or hip drive for now. Just get the ball on the table. The second type is a standard push return, which you should attack with your standard loop technique. Use the full technique your coach taught you: waist rotation, drop the racket, leg drive, forward momentum, arm snap, and brushing contact. The third type is that jab push we talked about, which is extremely common in amateur play. Professional players use clean, recognizable techniques. Amateurs, however, use a wide variety of unorthodox shots. You don't know the spin, and often, they don't either. For these neutral spin balls, you must use a hybrid loop drive stroke. Your backswing should be smaller than for a heavy backspin loop, but larger than for a pure topspin drive, and you must still apply friction. Same goes for the backhand. If the incoming ball is semi-spinny, your return stroke should be a semi-loop. A full loop will send the ball long. My stroke is more compact than a normal loop, but I still brush the ball and lift it slightly. That's all you need. If you are uncertain about the incoming spin, always treat it with this neutral, hybrid stroke. If I drop my racket too low for a full loop with the same power, the ball will go long. You must mirror the opponent's input. If they give you a white ball, no spin, you return with a white stroke. If they give you black, heavy spin, you use a black stroke. If it's gray, you must also be gray. Always default to treating an uncertain ball as neutral. If your backspin contact is here, your neutral contact is just slightly higher. Add friction, and that's it. If the opponent's push is heavy backspin, I drop my racket lower. If it's a no-spin jab push, my racket stays higher. As I've taught before, against heavy backspin, you contact the ball from underneath. When you can't read the spin and the motion looks like it's semi-spinny, you contact the ball from directly behind. If the ball has a heavy kick, you contact it from above to drive it down. Your relationship with the ball must constantly adapt.